Watson, a 10-year-old boy and the eighth son of a poor baron in the Holy Dragon Kingdom, struggled with the harsh realities of life. Though nobility was rare and usually privileged, his family was buried in debt and poorly managed. Their 100 acres of fertile land were overrun with weeds due to his father's incompetence, leaving them reliant on a backyard chicken farm to survive. The family was large, chaotic, and not particularly reliable. His alcoholic father, overworked mother, and a slew of siblings with their own quirks left Watson with little hope for a better life. Watson declined an invitation from his sister Scarlett, a spirited hunter and seventh-born, to go hunting. Instead, he tended the chicken farm, where he ran into his mischievous twin brothers Zeke and Zenoa. The pair had just stolen eggs from the farm to trade for toys and candy, highlighting the family's desperate and humorous way of coping, because nothing says financial planning like bartering breakfast for marbles. In a moment of despair, Watson reflected on his previous life as an overworked office worker on Earth. After wishing for a better life, he had found himself reincarnated into this struggling noble family a week prior. His resentment boiled over as he threatened to eat the chickens if life didn't improve. Suddenly, a message appeared in his mind. A super fusion system had activated in response to his sadness. It granted him the ability to fuse any object or creature, enhancing its quality. The system identified a nearby hen, and with Watson's consent fused 2 hens into a single hen king, which laid 2 delicious eggs daily and showed absolute loyalty. Eager to test this newfound power further, Watson used it on the entire chicken farm. All the hens merged into a radiant, massive fusion that emitted a resounding cry, marking the beginning of a dramatic shift in his once hopeless life. Watson had successfully fused 1,080 hens and created a gold-tier magical beast called the Pentacolor Fragrant Chicken. When the glowing ball of light shattered, a colorful, meter-tall hen with a golden crown on its head emerged, filling the air with a sweet scent that immediately relaxed him. Despite being new to the world, Watson already understood the tiered strength system ranging from iron to sovereign ranks, with the Pentacolor Fragrant Chicken falling at the gold level. The Pentacolor Fragrant Chicken had a remarkable ability. It could produce 100 eggs per day, each capable of increasing a person's lifespan by 1 year and boosting their strength by 100 caddies, though the effect would weaken over time. For Watson, who compared the chicken's benefits to winning the lottery, this was an unimaginable stroke of luck. Each egg, worth a gold coin, meant the chicken essentially laid gold instead of eggs. Overwhelmed with excitement, Watson affectionately named the chicken Emperor Cluck and hugged it. Emperor Cluck responded dramatically by laying 100 beautiful metallic-sounding eggs in quick succession. Each egg was huge, patterned, and looked like an expensive piece of jewelry. Curious, Watson cracked one open, slurped down the golden liquid inside, and immediately felt his muscles grow stronger. A transformation that made him so thrilled he looked like he had just won a lifetime supply of pizza. Meanwhile, Edward Gary, Watson's father and a poor baron, heard Emperor Cluck's powerful clucking from his bedroom. He initially thought it was just a loud child and dismissed it, joking with his wife Catherine about their situation. However, Watson soon called out excitedly, announcing that he had obtained Pentacolor Fragrant Chicken eggs and claiming they were now rich. An hour later, the entire family gathered around the table, marveling at the extraordinary egg Watson had brought. Even the siblings who were usually busy or absent returned home, drawn by the news. Scarlett, Zeke, and Zenoa admired the egg's beauty and rare value, knowing that the Pentacolor Fragrant Chicken was highly sought after and rarely bred. Edward suggested selling the egg, but Watson insisted they should eat it together instead of selling it. Just when the family was touched by his generosity yet hesitant because of the egg's immense value, Watson casually revealed that there were more than 90 eggs left at the farm, and even the Pentacolor Fragrant Chicken itself. Edward heard Watson's story at the dining table, then hurried with his family to the chicken farm. When they arrived, they saw the Pentacolor Fragrant Chicken, named Emperor Cluck, confidently patrolling the area and flattening the ground. Edward noticed that all the other chickens were missing and asked about them. Watson explained that the hens had run away, scared by Emperor Cluck. Edward accepted this, knowing that powerful magical beasts were territorial, and decided it was better to keep the valuable chicken, which could lay golden eggs. Scarlett suggested stewing the chicken because it looked delicious, making Edward freeze in shock. Zeke and Zenoa chimed in, saying they should sell it for toys, which nearly made Edward faint before Catherine steadied him. Watson explained that keeping Emperor Cluck would be more profitable, as it could lay 100 eggs a day, earning them dozens of gold coins daily after expenses. Edward, impressed by Watson's reasoning, decided Watson should manage the chicken farm. Zeke raised concerns about keeping a magical beast from running away or dying. Watson reassured everyone by calling Emperor Cluck, who immediately ran to him and affectionately rubbed against his leg. When Scarlett tried to approach, Emperor Cluck warned her by stomping the ground and creating a ditch, causing her to retreat in fear. Watson scolded the chicken playfully and reminded his family it was time to eat the eggs. Half an hour later, the family gathered around the table as Catherine handed out freshly boiled, colorful eggs. Watson carefully cut his egg, releasing a golden liquid with a rich aroma. While Watson ate calmly, Scarlet wondered aloud what the chicken itself would taste like. And Zeke and Zenoa fought over bites. Edward tried sneaking extra food but was stopped by Catherine. To change the subject, Edward announced that Watson would officially manage the chicken farm and that Zeke and Zenoa would sell the eggs at nearby farms. Everyone, too busy enjoying their eggs, agreed without complaint. Watson thanked his father. 3 days after Watson fused the Pentacolor fragrant chicken, the family's food situation improved, allowing them to eat eggs daily instead of meat soup once a week. Peter, the sick fifth sibling, started eating, and Margaret, the reclusive sixth sibling, came down occasionally to thank Watson. Edward and Catherine, Watson's parents, became more energetic and focused on expanding the family, making nighttime noisy for Watson's ears. Scarlet, Watson's seventh sibling, stopped hunting and helped him look after the Pentacolor fragrant chicken, though Watson had to keep an eye on her so she wouldn't secretly cook it. Watson calculated that with 8 family members eating 24 eggs daily, they still had over 300 eggs, and he decided to send his third and fourth brothers to sell some at nearby farms. Watson went to the attic, a dusty storage full of miscellaneous items, and Edward's book collection to learn magic. Because in a world of swords and magic, strength meant survival, and the Pentacolor fragrant chicken might attract unwanted attention. After eating more than 10 eggs over the days, Watson had grown taller, built muscles, and increased his life expectancy by 10 years, making it the perfect time to cultivate. He found a book titled An Encyclopedia of Basic Magic and blew the dust off it. The world's cultivation system divided into warriors, mages, archers, and priests, with warriors being the easiest to train and mages the hardest but the most powerful. Archers needed contracts with elves, and priests needed a heavenly enlightenment ceremony at a temple. Mages, however, had to be born with talent to communicate with magic elements. Watson remembered that only his second sister had magical talent and left home early for training, celebrated by a 3-day family feast. Though Watson was tested at birth and found talentless, he wondered if being a transmigrator had changed his fate. He found the testing circle spell in the book, used a knife to draw a large magic pattern on the floor, then stood in the center and chanted, "Light illuminates the world, darkness envelops the earth, and the power of the 4 elements bear the weight of all. Faith shall be dedicated to the elemental monarch, and upon me a miracle will be bestowed." As the attic shook and lights floated around, the blue water element symbol on the right side of the circle lit up brightly, soaking the floor and Watson's body. Watson realized he had water magic talent, which was rare and strong, with only 1 in 100 mages having similar quality. Watson flipped the book to the water magic section and saw 2 iron tier spells, the drizzle spell, which helped crops grow by sprinkling water from fingertips, and the water ball spell, which formed a fist-sized ball of water that could hit a target within 100 meters. Watson quickly learned both spells. First, he cast the drizzle spell, feeling a river of energy gather in his right hand as water droplets sprinkled from his fingers like a broken faucet. Next, he formed a water ball and threw it at a wall, making it shake and leaving a pool of water. Watson practiced a few times until he grew pale and tired, realizing that while iron tier spells were easy to learn, they weren't very powerful, like trying to win a food fight with a wet sponge. The system's voice reminded Watson that it could fuse all things, including spells, to raise their quality. Watson immediately agreed to fuse his 2 spells, and the knowledge of the drizzle spell and water ball spell combined in his mind to create a new, stronger spell. Watson received a system notification that he had successfully fused the iron tier spells drizzle and water ball into the bronze tier spell thunderstorm. He opened his hands first, then saw a dazzling sky blue light form fist-sized water balls, over 100 of them, filling the attic. He realized that the bronze tier thunderstorm spell summoned a layer of clouds and produced rain within a maximum area of 100 square meters. Watson understood that bronze tier spells were much stronger than iron tier spells, being more than 10 times powerful, with thunderstorm able to rain down water balls that could nourish and destroy at the same time. Before he could cancel the spell, all the water balls dropped at once, merging into a waterfall that smashed the attic floor, broke the door, shattered the windows, and collapsed part of the mud and wood wall. A river gushed out of the broken wall, spraying outside and creating a rainbow. Watson stood stunned, then quickly moved to save his soaked bookshelves and books. Downstairs, Edward, Catherine, Scarlet, Zeke, and Zenoa heard the noise and rushed up, seeing the destroyed attic and the sky through the missing wall. Watson's 2 brothers joked, asking if he had been taking a shower and if the water pipe had exploded. Watson smiled awkwardly and tried to hide the magic book behind his back. Edward noticed the magic formation on the ground and guessed Watson was secretly learning magic. When Edward asked for the book, Watson gave it to him and admitted he had been studying it and accidentally learned 2 Iron Tear spells, causing the disaster. Everyone was shocked, remembering that Watson had tested as having no magical talent. Catherine, still fixing her messy clothes from the rush upstairs, and Scarlet both pointed out that Watson's previous magical perception had been extremely weak. Edward, instead of questioning him further, praised Watson, stating that the monarch had blessed them with a second mage in the family, and suggested celebrating. Catherine eagerly ordered Zeke and Zenoa to fetch Pentacolor fragrant chicken eggs for Watson, telling them he should eat 10 eggs for lunch instead of 5. The 2 brothers left happily to prepare the meal, while Scarlet pouted unhappily, worried she could no longer protect Watson as she had always intended. After half an hour, Watson sat at the dining table surrounded by 10 boiled eggs, wanting to cry but unable to do so, because his father kept telling him to eat more to grow strong. He forced himself to eat all the eggs, knowing the strengthening effects had lessened significantly and now required 10 eggs to gain the same benefit he once got from 1. Later, Edward sent Zeke and Zenoa to sell 200 eggs to a nearby farm to buy meat and rice noodles to further nourish Watson's body, treating him like a rare treasure after his discovery of the Pentacolor fragrant chicken and his newfound magic ability. Watson, feeling bloated, went for a walk to ease his discomfort and arrived at the family's 10 acres of abandoned farmland. Since no one in the family knew how to farm, the fields had long been neglected. Watson thought it would be a good idea to use his new magic to improve the land. Wanting to fully unleash his Bronze Tear thunderstorm spell, he opened his arms and cast it. The sky darkened first, then a black cloud layer 100 meters wide appeared. Lightning flashed and blue water balls the size of fists rained down like cannonballs, pitting the ground deeply. Nearby farmers noticed the strange sight, remarking in confusion that it was raining only in one place, and joking that if those fist-sized raindrops hit someone, it would be the worst day to forget an umbrella. On the road near the farm, 6 armored men walked together, led by Vincent, who carried a sword as thick as a door on his back, and resembled Watson by 70%. Captain Wesley told Vincent he needed 100 gold coins to marry List's daughter. Vincent assured him he could raise the money by selling abandoned farmland. Wesley gave him 7 days, warning that others were competing for her hand. Vincent clenched his fists and promised to try, thinking of his family and hopes for a better life. Dark clouds gathered, thunder rumbled, and a fist-sized water ball fell from the sky, startling Vincent. He watched as mist covered the ground, realizing the spell targeted his family's wheat field. Panicking over possible destruction, he rushed toward the field, worried about losing their only valuable asset. Wesley led the guards to follow him. In the field, Watson stood in the rain, content as water balls bounced harmlessly off him. The rain turned dry yellow soil into fertile black soil, while weeds grew rapidly, eventually burying Watson. He stopped casting when drained, and the clouds cleared, leaving him tired but satisfied. Outside the field, Vincent arrived, drew his sword, and shouted for the hidden mage to reveal themselves. Watson struggled out from the tall weeds, confused, and both froze when they recognized each other. Watson as the mage, Vincent as his brother. Vincent confirmed his identity while Wesley and the guards admired Watson's magic and joked about their luck meeting a young mage. Vincent grabbed Watson and led everyone home. At the table, Catherine served colorful, fragrant eggs. Edward invited Vincent to taste them, explaining they came from their Pentacolor fragrant chicken. The guards hesitated, whispering that such eggs were usually reserved for nobles. Vincent, confused and amused, wondered aloud how his poor family could possibly own such a valuable chicken. Wesley arrived at Vincent's home, assessed the family's situation, then sat at the table staring at the eggs, realizing they came from a Pentacolor fragrant chicken. He swallowed hard and decided it would be better to take the chicken for himself, rather than let Vincent use it as a betrothal gift. His subordinates questioned whether Vincent would offer the chicken, then agreed with Wesley's plan to seize it if the family lacked powerful allies. One subordinate hesitated, but Wesley insisted it wasn't robbery. It was protection for their master. Wesley quickly ate the egg after being teased for letting it get cold, strengthening his resolve to steal the Pentacolor fragrant chicken. An hour later, Wesley brought Vincent to the chicken farm, first showing him the colorful Pentacolor fragrant chicken, before demanding Vincent hand it over to Master List. Vincent protested, accusing Wesley of crossing the line, while Wesley justified his actions by saying weak families couldn't protect such a treasure and promised to reduce the betrothal gift if Vincent cooperated. Vincent refused, called Wesley a traitor, and threatened to tell Master List. Wesley slapped Vincent hard, insisted again it was protection, and declared he would take the chicken no matter what Vincent said. 4 guards arrived carrying the captured Pentacolor fragrant chicken inside a black sack, complaining about the chicken's strength, despite its lack of combat abilities. Wesley ordered his men to leave and warned Vincent that staying quiet would allow him to marry the young lady, but causing trouble would bring harm to his family. Vincent stood frozen, torn between helplessness and anger, then sighed and agreed to follow along, blaming himself for inviting a wolf into the house. A loud, childish voice called from behind them, and everyone turned to see Watson angrily demanding to know who had touched his chicken. Wesley lunged first, drawing his sword and coating it with green windblade aura that produced dozens of sharp, whistling windblades. His subordinates followed, to restrain the Pentacolor fragrant chicken, while the other 2 unsheathed weapons, emitting blue and yellow combat aura. Watson quietly observed, noting this was his first time seeing combat aura in action, and recognizing the differences from magic. Earlier at the table, Wesley's group had questioned Edward about strong people and noble ancestry. Edward, eager to impress, answered everything openly. Despite Watson's warnings, Edward brought out the Pentacolor fragrant chicken eggs to show off. That prompted Wesley's group to move against them. Vincent blocked Watson when Wesley advanced, pleading with him not to fight. Wesley mocked him, denied his offer, and ordered him to step aside. Vincent, frustrated and desperate, drew his massive sword but held back from attacking. Watson then stepped forward, holding a covered basket. He revealed nearly 100 colorful eggs and, ignoring the mockery, activated the system. The eggs fused into a small, glowing phoenix-like egg. The air filled with a rich aroma, and the egg emitted pressure that unsettled everyone. Watson immediately ate the egg, causing white steam and black impurities to stream from his body. His skin turned red and fiery wings burst from his back. The phoenix wings granted him flight and powerful defense. The system confirmed he gained 100 years of life, 1,000 caddies of strength, and awakened phoenix bloodline. Wesley, shocked, attacked with a windblade that split the air, but Watson blocked it using a crystal-like wing shield. Watson struck back by firing flaming feathers. The feathers burned through Wesley's aura and armor, leaving him charred and unconscious on the ground. Before Watson could turn to the remaining guards, they threw down their weapons and surrendered. The 2 holding the chicken dropped to their knees, terrified. The Pentacolor fragrant chicken ripped free from its restraints, strutted away proudly, and returned to the farm. Watson saw glowing words floating above the eggs. He read that the Pentacolor fragrant chicken eggs increased lifespan and strength, then gave a command. The 100 eggs merged into a single lychee-sized glowing egg with a phoenix image on its shell. It radiated a strong scent and pressure. Vincent, Wesley, and the others watched, confused and shocked. Before anyone could react, Watson ate the egg. Heat surged through his body, releasing steam from his skin. His face reddened, and his pores expelled black impurities. The system announced he had gained 100 years of life, 1,000 caddies of strength, and awakened the phoenix bloodline. Flaming wings burst from his back, stretching over a meter, with feathers thin as cicada wings and crystal patterns. The wings burned away dirt and acted as weapons and shields. Watson learned they could fly, release flames, and block bronze tier attacks. He had only wanted enough strength to face guards, but ended up with far more. He turned to Wesley and demanded the chicken. The phoenix wings flapped and released a holy white flame at Wesley. Wesley, stunned, responded with windblade. A 10-meter sword aura cut the flame in half. Vincent shouted a warning and rushed forward, but Watson's right wing blocked the sword aura with a crystal shield. Not a feather was moved. Watson dismissed the attack, then fired burning feathers from his other wing. They broke Wesley's barrier, burned his armor, and knocked him down, his body charred and eyes wide. Wesley, injured but bloodless due to the heat sealing his wounds, coughed green smoke and fell. The other guards panicked. Before Watson attacked, they surrendered and begged for mercy. The Pentacolor fragrant chicken escaped the sack, strutted back to the coop, and no one stopped it. Vincent's former co-workers arrived with hostile intent. Watson unleashed fiery red wings, then used them to defeat the attackers without combat aura. He retracted the wings and confirmed only his clothes were damaged. Vincent trembled, realizing Watson had become a silver tier warrior. He questioned Watson, who admitted he had just started cultivating and hadn't told anyone. Inside the house, Edward and Catherine watched the battles glow through their bedroom window. Edward remarked on Watson's strength, estimating it at bronze tier, and noted Watson didn't even use combat aura. Catherine said becoming a mage was even more prestigious. Edward replied that the professions could be combined. They recalled Edward's past as a gold-tier warrior who left his noble family after his aura was crippled. He explained he once placed his hopes in their older sons, but Watson had unexpectedly surpassed them. He revealed he used rare chicken eggs to test others' motives. Catherine scolded him for endangering Watson. Edward insisted Watson's talent was monarch-given and suggested they try for another gifted child. Catherine protested it was daytime and reminded him the attic roof was broken. Edward brushed it off and led her to bed, where creaking and moaning followed. Back outside, Vincent expressed disbelief at Watson's strength and regretted not knowing sooner. Watson redirected his focus to the captured men. Vincent hesitated, remembering they were his colleagues, and debated what to do. The guards panicked, knelt, and begged for mercy, blaming Wesley for their actions. One pleaded for his pregnant wife. Vincent decided to release them, instructing them to tell their boss that Wesley had tried to steal from his family and was punished. He declared he was cutting ties with the farm. Watson stopped the group before they left and demanded they hand over their armor, swords, and valuables. The guards stripped to their underpants and carried away the unconscious Wesley. Vincent worried the humiliation might spark revenge. Watson answered that sparing enemies was more dangerous. Vincent hugged Watson tightly, lamenting not being there for him. He promised to stay and support him now. Watson, nearly crushed, reminded him they still had to count the loot. Watson counted 20 silver coins, 4 sets of armor, 5 swords, and some jewelry on the ground. He asked his brother why he didn't have armor, and Vincent explained he was only an iron tier warrior who couldn't afford it. Vincent pointed out his black iron sword, which cost him 5 silver coins and was weaker than steel. Watson offered to make him armor, surprising Vincent, who didn't expect his little brother to know forging. Vincent assumed Watson just wanted to play around and said he would take him to a blacksmith when he had time. Watson said he only knew a little about forging, and Vincent reassured him it was fine. Vincent then mentioned needing to tell their father about Wesley's attempted theft of the Pentacolor fragrant chicken and left. Watson sat cross-legged and activated the super fusion system. He agreed to fuse the armor, and the pieces turned into a glowing vest called Thorn Vest. It was bronze tier, covered in barbs, could resist bronze tier attacks, and repelled half the damage from stronger attacks. He tried it on, found it too big, and tested it with a strong slash using a thin sword. The vest held firm, the sword cracked, and his arm went numb. He took it off and decided to give it to Vincent. Then he fused the 5 thin swords into one bronze tier weapon called Storm Sword. The sword created wind blades that could cut up to 10 meters away. He waved it, and it left a crack on the ground. Watson fused leftover clothes and jewelry into clean clothes that repelled dust and an ethereal necklace that calmed the mind. He put on the necklace and planned to use the robe as pajamas because his family was poor and he had to be thrifty. Behind a fence near the chicken farm, Vincent peeked back to ask a question, but instead saw the armor fuse into a vest and the swords merge into a glowing blade. He froze, stunned, as he watched everything forge itself without a furnace or hammer, wondering what on earth his little brother had just done. Watson sprinkled chicken feed on the Pentacolor fragrant chicken, then went home with a thorn vest and storm sword. When he went downstairs, he saw Vincent explaining something to their father, Edward, who dismissed the issue lightly and left. Vincent tried to speak about Watson's ability, but stopped when Watson appeared. Watson asked what was wrong, and Vincent claimed it was nothing, still stunned from watching Watson create bronze tier equipment instantly at the farm. Vincent, confused and overwhelmed, decided to rest. Zeke and Zenoa stood outside a wealthy farm 10 kilometers away, carrying a basket of Pentacolor fragrant chicken eggs and a cart of meat and flour. Judging the workers' clothes, they chose to sell there, setting the price at 2 gold coins per egg. They had already sold 100 eggs, earned 150 gold coins, and gathered a cart of food that day. They aimed to sell the remaining eggs for more profit. They entered the farm and presented 2 eggs, stirring curiosity among the farmers. One man explained the eggs' magical effects, boosting strength and extending lifespan. The farmers, though poor, pulled together 180 silver coins and bought the eggs. Zeke then asked if the owner wanted to buy more. A worker called for Master Miles, who appeared and examined them. Zeke offered 8 eggs for 15 gold coins, claiming they came from Monty Town. When asked which gate the caravan used, they said South Gate. Miles laughed, revealing Monty Town had no South Gate, and ordered his men to arrest them. The farmers grabbed hoes and closed in as Zeke and Zenoa realized their bluff had failed. "Master, we've captured the 2 youths," a farmer reported to Miles, listing the seized goods. Over 90 Pentacolor fragrant chicken eggs, gold coins, meat, rice, and flour. Miles, distracted, returned to focus and ordered the goods brought into the manor quietly, promising the man a shared egg. The farmer stayed silent about the stingy reward. Miles noted the children's ragged clothes and lies about Monty Town, assumed they had no noble ties, and ordered their interrogation without killing them. He grew excited, suspecting they had access to or raised the rare magical chicken prized by nobles. 3 days after Zeke and Zenoa left, Watson stood on the farm, having learned 2 Iron Tier water spells: Water Fairy Summon and Water Shield. The first summoned a small fish-shaped water fairy for scouting. The second created a half-body shield. He practiced the spells, then used the Super Fusion system to combine them. The system created a new Bronze Tier spell, Water Fairy Group Summon, capable of summoning up to 100 fairies with Iron Tier strength. The fairies could explore wide areas and transform into weapons like swords and axes. Watson cast the spell. A single fairy appeared, followed by a growing crowd until 100 hovered around him. They formed a glowing blue ring that turned into a river, rose into the sky, and morphed into a massive fist. The fist slammed into the ground, cracked the earth, and shifted into a palm, a sword, and then an axe, each smashing the ground further. The nearby Pentacolor fragrant chicken avoided him cautiously, clucking in confusion. Watson admired the magic's destructive power, then felt weak from the strain. He considered fusing more spells to grow stronger in case of future threats. Vincent, his brother, arrived next, reacting to the damaged land and thunderous noise. He asked if there had been an earthquake. Watson claimed he was practicing Iron Tier magic. Vincent didn't believe him, and firmly asked where he had learned magic and where the rare chicken came from. "Big brother, what are you talking about?" Came first, then Watson claimed he learned magic from books, and said the Pentacolor fragrant chicken came from outside. Vincent called him out and said he had seen Watson fuse Bronze Tier equipment and act clueless. Watson hesitated, almost revealing the truth about the system. Vincent guessed a powerful wandering mage was secretly teaching Watson, and Watson nodded along. Vincent explained that powerful mages could stop aging and often traveled, then asked when Watson would invite the mage home. Watson said his master was elusive, and Vincent accepted that. Vincent asked if the chicken was from the master too, and Watson agreed. Vincent boasted about his experience and told Watson to invite the master next time. As he left, he asked about the armor Watson was forging. Watson said the master was working on it, but Vincent pointed out he had seen Watson hide the weapons himself. Watson got confused by the logic but didn't argue. Vincent said he would show the weapons to their siblings and tell their father. Watson later gave Vincent the Thorn Vest and Storm Sword. Vincent looked impressive in them, and their father drooled with envy, asking to borrow the vest. Catherine dragged him away by the ear, scolding him for trying to take a child's things. Scarlet, the 7th sibling, asked Watson for a copy of the gear. Watson, annoyed, ran off to avoid more requests. He realized the chicken farm was too exposed and moved to the abandoned farmland for privacy. There, he fused the Bronze Tier Water Fairy Group Summon with Rainstorm. A crash followed as thick dark clouds appeared. Wind bent the grass and heavy rain poured like water dragons. The dragons hit the ground and transformed into blue 3-meter-tall soldiers with armor, swords, and shields. 100 soldiers appeared, each solid and heavy like real warriors. Nearby, farmers looked at the sky. One asked why it always rained lately and joked that it looked like there was a hole in the sky. Another noticed the clouds only hovered in one area and thought it was strange. Water elemental warrior summoning appeared in Watson's mind. Then he smiled and considered the scale he could reach with more magic. He imagined thousands of Bronze Tier warriors filling the land, then he tried summoning 100. His magic began to drain within a minute, so he dismissed most and kept 10 active. Their sickles slashed through weeds as they cleared paths in the farmland. Watson lay down with his hands behind his head and planned to plant wheat seeds when his brothers returned. 2 days passed while Watson tended the chicken farm in the mornings and sparred with Vincent, who had grown more confident after getting new weapons. Watson, holding back and avoiding phoenix wings, still won often and only lost when he allowed it. Scarlet stopped Watson that morning as he prepared to leave and asked him to go hunting. She wore a bow across her chest and scolded him for ignoring her while favoring their older brother. She reminded him that she was the first to take him hunting and demanded fairness. Watson, after having his ear pulled, gave in. In the misty forest, Scarlet returned with 2 rabbits she had shot through the head. Her increased strength from eating Pentacolor fragrant chicken eggs helped her succeed. Watson lay under a tree, chewing grass, and calmly praised her. She offered to teach him archery and boasted about its power. He refused. To make a point, she asked if magic could hit from 1,000 meters. Watson turned his body and summoned a water elemental warrior, using a water pillar that landed 1,000 meters away. The warrior speared over 10 rabbits in moments and returned. Scarlet stared, tossed aside her bow, and asked Watson to teach her magic instead. Watson and Scarlet hunted dozens of rabbits using the water elemental warriors, then caught thousands of wild chickens from the forest. Scarlet was initially shocked but got used to the increasing number of unconscious hens. Watson planned to go home and use fusion to create more Pentacolor fragrant chickens for additional income. While heading back, Watson told Scarlet again she couldn't learn magic, and the water elemental warrior followed them with rabbit corpses and herded the chickens. Scarlet insisted he must have used a method to gain magic despite lacking talent before, and she demanded to learn. Watson, unable to explain his system, promised to get bows and arrows for her instead when Zeke and Zenoa returned. They pinky swore, and Scarlet skipped around happily, eager for her weapons. Watson dismissed the water elemental warrior at home and had Scarlet carrying the rabbits. He sent the hens to the chicken farm and fused them, successfully creating 4 new Pentacolor fragrant chickens, bringing the total to 5. The 5 chickens walked around aggressively, not daring to approach one another. Watson fed the chickens and went inside. His mother Catherine had prepared vegetable broth and eggs for dinner. Edward instructed Vincent to bring food to Peter and Margaret upstairs. Vincent asked about Margaret, and Edward explained she stayed in her room reading after learning she lacked cultivation talent. As they ate, Edward praised Watson after hearing from Scarlet about the hens. He noted it had been 4 days and Zeke and Zenoa still hadn't returned. He decided to contact merchants to help sell their surplus eggs in Monty Town, using the Saint Laurent family name for protection if needed. He suggested selling a Pentacolor fragrant chicken if necessary, given Watson's large hen capture. When Edward asked to see the hens, Watson said they had all run away again, probably due to the new magical chickens. Edward was annoyed but paused when Watson confirmed there were now 5 Pentacolor fragrant chickens. Edward dropped his handkerchief, Catherine stopped eating, Scarlet puffed her cheeks, and Vincent froze as soup dribbled down his chin. Inside Miles Manor's dungeon, the cold floor was damp and covered in hay as 2 boys, Zeke and Zenoa, lay chained and bruised. A guard whipped them while demanding the origin of the Pentacolor fragrant chicken. Zeke explained again that they stole the eggs from a caravan in Monty Town, but the guard accused him of lying and whipped Zeke's leg, causing him to collapse. Zenoa insisted their story was true, and after calling them wretches, the guard left. Zenoa crawled to Zeke to check on him, and Zeke reminded him not to reveal anything, saying Watson's family depended on the chicken. Zenoa promised to stay silent. Outside, the guard reported their silence to Master Miles, who was furious and ordered portraits of the boys to be drawn and spread around nearby farms with fake theft accusations. He planned to kill the boys if unclaimed within 2 days and expected the rumors to draw out someone connected to them. Miles muttered that if their family lacked power, he'd eliminate them to hide the truth about the Pentacolor fragrant chicken. At Watson's home, Vincent walked into the chicken farm and asked Watson how many eggs were available. Watson said the chickens had just laid some, and Vincent counted over 800. Though surprised, Vincent didn't react as strongly as before because constant surprises dull excitement. The 5 Pentacolor fragrant chickens laid about 500 eggs daily, translating to 15,000 gold coins monthly. That morning, Edward announced that each person could eat 3 eggs per meal. Vincent's strength had increased by 1,000 caddies, and his combat aura had doubled, making him a bronze tier warrior. He asked Watson about his mysterious master, suspecting he had taken thousands of hens. Watson nervously admitted his master liked chicken, and Vincent suggested they try hatching some eggs. Watson explained it would be difficult due to the low hatching rate and absence of a rooster. Vincent asked him to get one from his master next time, and then went to train outside. Watson watched Vincent and thought about how fusing chickens was more efficient than hatching. He planned to go to Misty Forest with Scarlet but was interrupted before leaving. 20 minutes later, Watson paced inside after hearing from Edward that Zeke and Zenoa had been captured by Miles Manor. Edward showed him a parchment with their portraits and explained the Manor's demand. If no one came within 2 days, the boys would be executed. Vincent offered to go rescue them, but Watson insisted on going himself, saying the boys were taken because of him and he should take responsibility. At night, Master Miles hosted a feast using the meat and rice noodles Zeke and Zenoa had gathered. Farmers drank and ate, suspicious of Miles's rare generosity. They discussed rumors that the boys in the dungeon were the children of a poor baron and that their family might own the Pentacolor fragrant chicken. Miles planned to destroy the family and claim the chicken the next day. A guard asked if the boys should be fed, but Miles refused and ordered their execution after the meal. He then told the guard to let the farmers drink more wine but eat less meat. The guard turned to leave, but a boy suddenly bumped into him, spilling wine. The guard cursed and asked who the boy belonged to. The boy had brown hair, blue eyes, and a bright smile. No one claimed him. Miles threatened to have everyone's wages unless someone took responsibility. The farmers pressured a man named David, who protested that the boy couldn't be his. He began to consider accepting the blame when the boy spoke, calling out Miles by name and accusing him of capturing his siblings. The boy warned Miles to say his last words. That morning, Watson learned about his siblings' capture, flew to the manor with his phoenix wings, gathered information, and snuck into the banquet. Seeing Miles's stinginess and murder plot triggered Watson's rage. Miles ordered his men to seize Watson. The same guard stepped forward and grabbed for him, but a red light struck the guard's abdomen, sending him flying. Watson's flaming combat aura wings appeared, revealing him as a silver tier powerhouse. The farmers froze, and Miles trembled with cold sweat as Watson called him to face death. Watson stood in the hall while farmers hesitated, recognizing he was a silver tier warrior. Miles panicked, realized he had misjudged Watson's strength, shouted for the farmers to stop Watson for a few minutes in exchange for quintupled pay, and fled toward the dungeon to use hostages. The farmers, tempted by the reward, charged with tables, chairs, and bottles. Watson calmly opened his phoenix wings, formed a red jade shield with one wing, and burned incoming objects to ash. His other wing launched flaming feathers that pierced limbs and cauterized wounds, dropping dozens of farmers without killing them. Guards outside saw the scene, hesitated, but still rushed in. Alan, their bronze tier leader, wore sky blue combat aura armor and used his spear to block the feathers. Watson, unable to break through the water element with fire, retracted his wings and was forced back against a wall by the guards' combined attack. Miles, noticing Watson's retreat, assumed he lacked true silver tier power, offered Alan more rewards and left through the back door. Alan, tempted by the egg's rumored ability to enhance strength, believed Watson had only gained power by eating many, and prepared to fight harder. Watson assessed his lack of close combat skill, warned the guards to retreat, and acknowledged his own shortcomings. The guards mocked him, calling him a bragging child and questioning if his strength was only good for running away. Watson responded by casting a silver tier magic spell. The ceiling cracked and collapsed as dozens of water pillars descended, forming water elemental warriors. The summoned soldiers attacked, overpowered the guards, and forced Alan to his knees by surrounding him with spears. The summoned warriors advanced in formation, shaking the ground. The guards realized Watson had dual silver tier abilities in magic and combat. Fear spread, and even the promise of increased wages could not convince them to fight. A dark cloud appeared above the manor, then a pillar of water smashed through the roof. Miles, stepping out of the hall, realized the damage was likely Alan's doing and guessed he had advanced to silver tier. He grew excited, then walked toward the dungeon, thinking Watson's capture was inevitable. Watson appeared behind him and spoke calmly, then revealed dozens of water elemental warriors holding guards and farmers, including Alan. Miles, shocked and furious, scolded his subordinates, then paled as Watson approached. Watson's gaze made him collapse. Trying to escape punishment, Miles offered gold and freedom for Watson's brothers, while secretly planning to hire assassins or poison Watson's home water supply. Watson raised his hand, prompting a summoned warrior to throw a spear that pierced Miles's chest. Miles looked down at the wound and died. Watson sat in the damaged hall while guards and farmers stood or lay injured. He declared that Miles was the main culprit and told everyone else to hand over valuables and leave. The group surrendered armor, weapons, coins, jewelry, and the stolen Penicolor fragrant chicken eggs. Alan explained that the remaining property consisted of magical beasts. Watson asked to see them and followed Alan to a breeding farm where over 100 feral lions and rock-armored tigers were kept. Two dominant beasts jumped the fence and roared at Watson. Alan warned that magical beasts were wild and hostile to strangers. Watson activated his fusion ability. The lion and tiger merged into a huge two-headed beast. Alan, stunned and sweating, confirmed that no other magical beasts remained. Information about the fused liger appeared in Watson's eyes. The beast stopped roaring, lowered its heads and rubbed against him while purring. Watson stroked it, then asked Alan about the price of a bronze-tier magical beast. Alan, recovering from shock, replied it could sell for 10 gold coins or more. When Watson asked about gold-tier beasts, Alan hesitated, then explained they were worth at least 100,000 gold coins, and were rarely sold due to their long lifespans and immense power. Watson looked over the hundreds of feral lions and rock-armored tigers, deciding that strength was more important than coins. He ordered the system to fuse them. Light engulfed the beast, merging into the liger. It grew to 10 meters in length, gained a third head, a golden goat, sprouted massive wings, and a golden python tail that released poisonous mist. The new tri-headed golden chimera stood before Watson, glowing like gold. It had fire, earth, and darkness attributes, and could cast 7 gold-tier spells including Sunlight, Firestorm, War Stomp, Earth Pulse, Death Curse, Dark Rot, and Lethal Poison. It also had powerful resistances, could shrink its size, and could camouflage. Watson admired the creature. Alan collapsed to his knees nearby. When Watson asked what was wrong, Alan claimed his leg was injured in the earlier fight. Watson pointed out he hadn't been touched, but Alan insisted. Watson said nothing more. He gestured, and the chimera shrank to a small golden lion with its extra heads and tail hidden. It lay on his shoulder, scratching its face with its hind leg, its eyes full of flattery. Watson named it Golden Flash. He played with it briefly, then walked back to the hall with Alan. Alan stared at him, overwhelmed by the fusion's success, and the possibility of even greater fusions. In the hall, Watson told the guards to deliver armor, weapons, and money to his home, and let the others return to their families. Just as they responded, Alan ran forward, knelt and begged Watson to take over the manor as its new owner. "What's up with Captain Alan?" a guard asked while Watson stood nearby. Alan, known for his pride and status as a bronze-tier warrior, knelt in front of Watson, who had killed Miles. Other Iron-tier guards watched in confusion, expecting Alan to oppose Watson instead of begging him to stay. Meanwhile, farmers bandaged wounds and discussed the golden lion on Watson's shoulder, guessing it was a mutated beast from the manor. A woman called it cute, and the group stayed calm despite being hurt earlier, knowing they had attacked first under Miles' command. Alan silently judged their ignorance, thinking they would fear the lion if they knew it was a gold-tier magical beast. The guards failed to recognize its value too. Watson, surprised by Alan's plea, admitted he had planned to take the manor's valuables and sell it. Alan insisted Watson should stay and offered to catch magical beasts monthly from Misty Force without pay, in exchange for magical beast fusions and Penicolor fragrant chicken eggs. The guards recalled Watson had those chickens and realized Alan's motivation: chicken eggs that could boost strength and help reach silver tier. Watson agreed to take over the manor and asked about salaries. Alan explained he earned 1 gold coin monthly, guards earned 20 silver coins, and farmers 10. Watson raised everyone's wages tenfold and asked those who wanted to stay to step forward. Every person stepped forward. Watson ordered Alan to hand out gold coins on the ground and look for herbs to treat injuries, then asked him to release his 3rd and 4th siblings. While the manor celebrated, Watson stood at the dungeon entrance. Alan entered and brought out Zeke and Zenoa. Their bodies were bruised, their clothes torn, and their breathing weak. Watson approached guilt-ridden, but Zeke rolled his eyes and denied knowing him. Zenoa also dismissed Watson, and both tried to protect him by distancing themselves. Zeke told Alan not to arrest a stranger, but Alan informed them that Watson was their brother and had killed Miles. Alan pointed to Miles' corpse nearby. Zeke and Zenoa looked, saw the body, and kicked it. They limped to Watson, asking if he was hurt. Watson assured them he was fine, and said they would rest that night and go home the next day. Zeke and Zenoa, despite their injuries, were relieved. Watson ordered Alan to gather all medicinal herbs in the manor. Alan obeyed, and the two brothers, confused, asked about Watson's status. Watson explained he now owned the manor. They stared, mouths wide open, like kids realizing too late that prank gum really was spicy. Zeke sat on the bed and tore off the blood-soaked cloth from his body, reopening scabbed wounds and grimacing in pain. Zenoa, watching nearby, replied that staying in the guard's bedroom at Miles Manor shouldn't be a problem. The small golden lion left by Watson paced protectively in the room, then puffed out its chest and patted it, promising silent vigilance. Zenoa looked at the lion and remembered how different Watson had become. How he used to fall chasing prey, cry from broken legs, skip meals, and break bowls, always needing his siblings' help. Watson no longer followed Scarlet. Now Scarlet relied on him and even studied magic. Zenoa noted the magical lion's aura resembled the pentacolor fragrant chicken, and said Watson's personality had changed too much to be explained by just learning magic. Zeke, while continuing to remove the cloth from his wounds, agreed the change was strange but insisted Watson was still their brother and had become outstanding. They followed Watson's odd instructions about infection prevention, not understanding terms like antibiotics or tetanus. In another room, Alan presented Watson with 2 bundles of medicinal herbs from the manor. Most were Dalman grass, effective only for external injuries. Alan hesitated and suggested bringing a pharmacist from Monty Town 4 days away. Watson rejected the idea, saying Zeke and Zenoa couldn't wait that long. Alan sighed, thinking Watson, a 10-year-old, was unqualified, but stayed quiet under Watson's firm gaze. Watson whispered about wishing he knew healing magic, which only priests could learn in church. He resolved to prepare for that one day, then examine the herbs. The system in his eyes identified Dalman grass and little lamp grass. Watson activated the system to fuse the herbs. The bundles disappeared, forming a palm-sized floating 7 treasures glazed ginseng glowing with rainbow light. It released a pungent scent and rainbow glow as the system listed its effects: healing all injuries, extending life by 100 years, boosting strength by 1,000 caddies, and, awkwardly, granting men an extra half-hour of bed combat strength. Classic dad medicine, stronger, longer, and glowing like a disco ball. Alan dropped to his knees, trembling, and confirmed it was indeed the legendary 7 treasures glazed ginseng, famed for curing men's private ailments and worth 1,000 gold coins. He begged for just one small bite, claiming leg pain. Watson told him no. Half an hour later, Zeke drank a bowl of clear, colorful water Watson gave him and immediately felt warmth spread through his body as his wounds healed and soreness vanished. Watson had brewed the medicine using ground 7 treasures glazed ginseng. Zenoa drank next, jumped from the bed, lifted a heavy wooden table with one arm, and noticed a strange swelling below. His face flushed, and he froze. Watson explained that the medicine healed and strengthened but had side effects. The little lion Watson held looked at Zenoa and then at itself, smirking. Alan, observing, admired the medicine and wished for a taste. Zenoa, now uncomfortable, complained while Watson exited the room, leaving the brothers to discuss how to deal with the side effects. Alan followed, closed the door, and praised Watson, calling him a prodigy. Watson cut him off and ordered him to choose 6 farmers for the return home, and to take guards to Misty Forest to hunt magical beasts and collect herbs. He promised Alan a chance to receive the ginseng if the job was done well. Alan, overwhelmed with excitement, accepted and let go of his resentment over Miles's death. The next morning, Watson directed the farmers to load carts with armor, weapons, gold, food, clothes, and seeds, items all taken from the manor. 6 chosen farmers pushed the carts. Zeke and Zenoa wore new clothes, looked healthier, and walked stiffly with discomfort still showing. Watson ignored their expressions, rubbed the little lion's head, and led the group away as the rest of the manor's people waved goodbye. The remaining farmers, having learned about Watson's magical beast fusion and the powerful medicinal ginseng, watched in awe. They had seen Zeke and Zenoa nearly crippled, yet now fully recovered. Some wished they had been chosen, including Alan, who had to stay behind. Alan then summoned Nelsis, a guard, and removed him from duty, ordering him into the dungeon for torturing Watson's brothers under Miles's command. Nelsis, frightened, denied wrongdoing, but Alan insisted on accountability. Surrounded by loyal guards, Nelsis gave in and walked to the dungeon. There, he found Miles's rotting corpse, kicked it, spat on it, and cursed him for causing his misfortune. Watson returned home after half a day and rode a transformed golden flash, now a 3-meter-long golden lion, past farmland. The lion's claw marks drew attention, and farmers recognized Watson as the Gary family's 8th child. They guessed the lion was at least silver tier and speculated on Watson's power. Some gave up on plans to steal the pentacolor fragrant chicken, fearing his strength. Watson had instructed his third and fourth siblings to spread news of his silver tier status to prevent future threats like Miles. He decided to stop hiding his fusion ability and planned to call it lost magic if questioned. At home, Watson told 6 farmers to distribute food and sent Golden Flash to the chicken farm. He then entered his bedroom with 100 pieces of armor, intent on fusing defensive gear to become stronger. He examined 95 iron tier and 5 bronze tier armors, then triggered the fusion. The armor sets turned into golden light, collided, and formed a single set. The light revealed the ancient knight armor, black with cracks, movable mask, joint rivets, and spikes on the back. It radiated cold light and looked heavy. The armor granted resistance to gold tier attacks, absorbed damage as energy, and had additional effects. Complete physical immunity below gold tier. Dismantleable parts, auto-reshaping to fit the wearer, clothing disguise, and weightlessness. It also featured the skill Ancient Heroic Spirit, allowing the user to summon a gold tier spirit using stored energy. Watson, tempted by the armor, activated the dismantleable ability and equipped it starting with his forearm. The armor pieces attached like a puzzle and fit tightly. He flexed his fingers, producing a slicing sound in the air, and confirmed the armor's strength. He then covered his full body, turning into a small but imposing dark knight. Though thick, the armor felt weightless. He tested the skill by spreading phoenix wings. The armor reshaped the wings with black steel and flames. To charge the spirit summon, Watson used the wings to fire steel feathers at himself for an hour. When ready, he recited a summoning incantation. A void crack appeared behind him, and a black ghost holding a greatsword emerged. The spirit swung its weapon, creating a black tornado-like aura that shattered the wall and windows, shaking the house. Voices rose from below. Edward, Catherine, Vincent, Zeke, and Scarlet rushed upstairs and stopped at the sight of Watson in full armor and the gaping hole in the wall. Catherine asked if he was tearing down the house. "The attic was destroyed by that downpour a few days ago, and your father and I worked very hard to fix it. Now another big hole appeared in your bedroom." Catherine poured tea for Watson and scolded him. Then Watson apologized and drank awkwardly. He reflected that the ancient heroic spirit's sword attack was as strong as a gold tier warrior's blow but slow to charge, so he planned to give the armor to Golden Flash to improve the charge speed. Zeke tapped the armor, amazed that such quality could be achieved without forging, while Vincent compared it to his own bronze tier thorn vest and felt disheartened. Scarlet touched the armor, reminded Watson of his broken promise to forge her a longbow, and cried about being the only one left out of rewards like equipment and ginseng. Scarlet hit Watson's chest. Then Watson explained he lacked a suitable longbow to fuse but had gold coins, and promised to make her a weapon soon. Scarlet smiled and accepted the deal. Edward told the others to stop bothering Watson and to let him rest, and Zeke and Zenoa agreed. Scarlet offered to massage him, but Watson said he wasn't tired due to eating special eggs. Edward insisted Watson rest without the spiked armor to protect the bed, then stretched out his hand and jokingly asked to borrow the armor for 2 years. Before he could grab it, Catherine yanked his ear and dragged him away while everyone rolled their eyes. On the farm, 6 former workers from Miles Manor cut weeds and admired the fertile black soil, sweating but energized by how different the land felt. They wished for more than 10 acres to double crop yield. Watson came over with water, gave it to them, and decided against fusing more gold tier weapons to avoid alarming his family. Watson asked to see the wheat seeds before planting began. The farmers handed them over, and Watson identified them as ordinary low-yield seeds. Declaring that 100 caddies per acre was too little, he ordered the system to fuse them. The seeds merged instantly, flashing with dazzling light. Watson fused 100 wheat seeds and obtained a bronze-tier strong-acting wheat seed with disaster resistance, a half-growth cycle, and a 10,000 caddy yield per acre. Nearby farmers, surprised by the jade-like seed, asked questions. He told them the output wouldn't double but increase 100-fold. The farmers reacted with disbelief, calculating that Miles Manor's 300 acres could yield 100,000 caddies if fully planted. He fused all the farmers' seeds over 30 minutes, turning tens of thousands into a few hundred glowing ones. The seeds were buried, releasing a plant fragrance. The 6 farmers began to understand the massive potential. After assigning tasks, Watson walked away, noting the limited number of seeds wouldn't fill the fields. He planned to send Zeke and Zenoa to purchase more, and calculated the current yield might reach 30,000 to 50,000 caddies. He remembered his promise to Scarlet, and thought about asking his brother to help get longbows from blacksmiths. He sighed, thinking he was burdened too heavily for the youngest child. Arriving at the chicken farm, he was hit by a rock that shattered on his clothes, which were actually his disguised gold-tier ancient knight armor. He had reshaped it for everyday use and appreciated its defensive strength and flexibility. Inside the farm, 5 pentacolor fragrant chickens, led by Emperor Cluck, attacked Golden Flash. Stones flew as Golden Flash fled and shielded itself with its short limbs. Watson observed the situation and felt something was off. Golden Flash should have been stronger. Instead, it ran to Watson and climbed his shoulder, pointing at the chickens with teary eyes. Emperor Cluck approached, shook its colorful comb, dropped 2 eggs, and guarded them with its wings. It gestured sharply at Golden Flash. Watson asked if Golden Flash tried to steal eggs. Golden Flash whimpered and hid its head in shame. Watson realized the fight was likely caused by egg theft. He looked at the wrecked chicken farm and decided it would need rebuilding to separate the gold-tier beasts. Watson swung the storm sword forward with his right leg stepping out, then withdrew and repeated the movement under Vincent's supervision, who struck his back with a stick when he made mistakes. After thousands of repetitions, Watson's arm grew sore, though his 2,000 catty strength made the swings manageable. Vincent, surprised by Watson's interest in warrior training despite being a mage, corrected his form and then asked about his combat aura progress. Watson stopped, drove his sword into the ground, wiped his sweat, and lifted his hand to reveal a fiery red cyclone that stayed condensed, then spread over his forearm and half his body as illusory armor. Vincent, impressed, noted Watson had reached the peak of Iron Tier and could reach Bronze Tier in a few months. Vincent explained that combat aura shouldn't be released all at once like magic, then picked up Watson's sword, swung at a boulder, and split it with a fiery sword aura while a red light briefly flashed on his body. Vincent told Watson to focus aura into 1 point for efficiency, then handed him a silver tier water-type combat aura picture book as a reward for completing his training. Watson took it, noticed Vincent's worn clothes and scarred hands, and asked if he was injured. Vincent avoided the question, but Watson realized he had gone into the misty forest to trade eggs for the book, imagining his brother negotiating like someone trying to return a broken toy without a receipt. Watson tried not to cry as Vincent waved off his emotions. Watson promised not to disappoint him, opened the book titled Water Dragon Combat Aura, and began reading. Vincent considered Watson's dual affinity rare and recalled a famous general who used both fire and water aura in battle. Watson called out and showed a faint blue water-type aura on one finger. Vincent praised the quick progress. Watson then raised his other hand to reveal fire aura, clapped both hands together, and merged them into a bright golden combat aura that formed solid armor around his body. He said he had learned light-type combat aura and had advanced to Bronze Tier. Vincent picked up the sword and walked away quickly. Watson shouted after him for feedback, but Vincent just walked faster. Watson stared at his golden armor and saw glowing words appear, explaining the effects of his new light-type combat aura. He had fused water and fire combat auras to create it. He tested its strength and realized it increased power tenfold during the day. Then he activated it fully, releasing light from his pores that turned his hair, eyebrows, and pupils golden. The armor on his body expanded, and a sun disk of light formed behind him, connecting with the sun in the sky. The intense light around him caused grass in the courtyard to bend as if bowing. He noted the aura could also boost crop growth and thought about using it in the fields. Then he looked at 2 rocks Vincent had cut and raised his hand. A thin sword formed from the light and, in a flash, sliced the rocks into 4. He judged his power to now equal or exceed Vincent's and felt regret that his brother had left before teaching him more. Edward ordered workers to move wooden boards and white jade to strengthen the chicken farm, promising double pay, which made them work harder. While Vincent had been away fetching techniques for Watson, Edward had invited 2 merchant friends from Montytown to sell eggs. Thousands of pentacolor fragrant chicken eggs had been collected and stacked like a small mountain. When the merchants saw this, they knelt in awe. One of the merchant's attendants tried to steal an egg during contract signing but was caught by Golden Flash, a gold-tier magical beast. The man was so scared he wet his pants. The presence of the beast stopped any further thoughts of theft. The merchants assured Edward that the thief had been fired and praised the honesty of their groups. Edward replied proudly and offered the merchants discounts and gold coins as bonuses. They then asked about Watson, knowing he was the source of Edward's success and curious about the 10-year-old silver tier warrior and mage. Edward pretended Watson's growth was due to his own guidance and led them toward the courtyard. As they approached, a sudden intense light burst out, stabbing their eyes with pain. They cried out, unable to open their eyes. Watson fused light-type combat aura and reshaped it into a sword, spear, and shield, testing its sharpness and durability on wood and stone. He admired how the glowing blade resembled a laser, capable of slicing cleanly and resisting damage. While he prepared to continue, a shout outside interrupted him. Edward entered the courtyard with two fat men, all shielding their eyes from the blinding light. Watson dismissed the aura, and Edward realized it was light attribute combat aura. The merchants, Carter from the Lucky Business Group and Reynolds from the Traveling Wind Business Group, confirmed Watson's identity as Edward's eighth child and marveled at his strength. Carter introduced himself respectfully, thanked Watson for the Pentacolor fragrant chicken eggs, and praised him as the youngest silver tier warrior in kingdom history. Reynolds added that, in the capital, such talent would spark noble competition. The merchants admitted they came solely because of Watson's reputation. Carter invited Watson to Monty Town to take the professionals' union test, offering to cover all expenses so Watson could earn his official token. Reynolds countered with an offer to recommend Watson to the Knight Academy's dean, leading potentially to the Royal Academy, if he excelled. The two glared at each other, both trying to win Watson over. Watson rejected both, saying he preferred staying at the border to raise magical beasts and grow wheat. The merchants were stunned. Reynolds argued that farming couldn't compare to becoming a noble. Edward interrupted, claiming he could teach Watson himself. The merchants groaned, blaming Edward for holding his son back, and accused him of wasting such talent. Before they could continue arguing, a loud bang came from outside. A guard ran in, panicked, reporting that two white jade slabs had broken during unloading. Reynolds grew furious since the slabs were expensive and precisely counted for the job. Carter also fumed but restrained himself. Watson stepped forward and told them to check the situation, thinking to himself that it was just 2 stones. Reynolds told Watson they would listen to him, then looked at Carter and left. Carter felt embarrassed because his subordinates had made a serious mistake. Outside, 6 guards stood near a young man on the ground with a bruised ankle beside a round stone and 2 broken slabs. The white jade slabs were valuable minerals that helped with cultivation and comfort. Carter saw the shattered pieces, nearly fainted, and yelled at the guards, cutting 2 months of their pay and demanding they apologize to Baron Edward. The guards apologized, and Edward told them not to worry since it wasn't intentional. He picked up the round stone, noticed it was too smooth to be natural, and looked at Watson, who turned away knowing the stone came from his earlier test of a weapon formed by his light attribute combat aura. Edward, understanding the situation, asked Carter to let it go, and mentioned the trouble and cost of replacing the slabs from Monty Town. Carter scolded the guards again and told them to leave. Watson stopped them and said punishing them for broken stones was too much. Carter explained the high value and difficulty of replacing the slabs, estimating the total cost at over 100 gold coins. Watson asked if Carter would forgive the guards if the slabs were repaired. Reynolds doubted it was possible, but Edward encouraged Watson to try. Watson walked over, used his system ability, and fused the fragments into a new material. A flash of light brought the broken stones together into a smaller glowing metal plate. The system confirmed it was Arcana Mithril, a silver tier ore that increased cultivation speed, resisted silver tier attacks, and could change size. The guards whispered that the new slab was too small to be useful. Watson realized he forgot about the size-changing effect and prepared to fuse more stones. Before he could continue, Carter grabbed him and, recognizing the rare metal, asked to buy a piece. "It's Arcana Mithril!" Edward gasped after Watson fused brittle white jade into a glowing high-tier magical metal. Carter stared at the metal, stunned by its value and rarity, knowing it was used to craft powerful staffs and speed up cultivation. Watson offered it to him casually. Carter, in disbelief, asked Reynolds to pinch him. Reynolds slapped him hard, sending him spinning. Carter rubbed his face against the metal, while Reynolds looked on, frustrated. Watson told Reynolds he could make him a piece too, if Reynolds stopped blaming the guards. Reynolds quickly agreed, ordered another slab, and promised the guards they wouldn't be fined if they performed well. The guards, relieved, respected Watson even more. Reynolds then apologized to Edward for using his white jade. Edward reassured him, proposing to fuse and sell the remaining 14 slabs. He offered Reynolds 2 of them as gifts. 16 slabs of Arcana Mithril arrived, and the guards, awed by their appearance and magical value, resisted any temptation to steal. Carter asked Edward for more pieces. Edward agreed to 6 slabs total, 4 for Carter, 2 for Reynolds. Reynolds protested, arguing over fairness and business strength. They grabbed each other's collars, yelling over slab division. Edward, irritated, tried to leave. Watson stopped him and said he had a way to expand the house. Edward turned surprised. Watson pointed to some large stones and fused them, shrinking them and transforming them into white jade-like crystal blocks. Watson explained that ordinary stones could become white jade through fusion, allowing them to create unlimited slabs and continue production. Carter and Reynolds stopped fighting, straightened their clothes, and realized there would be no shortage of opportunity. A sweating guard leaned on a tree to escape the heat, while 3 others sat nearby, 2 shirtless with shirts tied around their waists. In front of them, more than 20 carriages stood loaded with rocks, not valuables. Farmers walking by gave odd looks but didn't stop. One guard, Gordo, who had sprained his ankle earlier, reflected on how Watson turned waste into treasure and shielded him from reprimand. He had admired the kingdom's diamond-tier sword saint, but now idolized Watson. Gordo had begged Watson to teach him light attribute combat aura, but after being refused, he chose instead to haul stones for days, hoping to be recognized. The group prepared to leave again, knowing if they returned late, they'd miss seeing Watson finish the house. Gordo, now calling Watson young master, influenced others to do the same. Carter and Reynolds, both merchants, stood behind Watson in the courtyard, fanning him as he observed the sight. 8 stone houses had already been built around his family's original home using silver jade, strong gold-shining stone produced from fusion with ordinary rock. The guards built them without foundations to speed up the work. Carter couldn't understand why Watson needed so many small houses when he wasn't leaving home or hosting long-term guests. Watson calmly explained that once 2 more houses were completed using the latest stone batch, the fusion could begin. That evening, Gordo and the others returned with 20 carts of stones. The guards delivered water, and Watson walked to the carts and activated the system's fusion. Large silver jade slabs were created and shaped into the final 2 houses, built without windows, stairs, or furniture. Now surrounded by 10 stone houses, Reynolds, still fanning despite his numb arms, pressed Watson for answers. Watson raised his hand toward the buildings and said, "System, fuse." The 10 houses shook, merged in a flash of light centered on Watson's old home, and formed a huge glowing sphere. Everyone shut their eyes from the brightness. When they opened them again, the houses were gone. In their place stood a massive 4-story mansion that covered several kilometers, with transparent windows and spacious interiors. There were likely over 100 rooms. "This is too shocking!" A guard stared at the massive mansion Watson had just created by fusing multiple houses. Another guard praised Watson's ability to fuse not just ores, but buildings. The fused mansion stood taller and more majestic, with black walls, murals, porcelain, and lion-shaped door handles. They compared it to the mayor's house and admitted defeat. Watson looked at the new castle, noted the conical domes and silver-tier features, then reviewed its effects: faster cultivation, better sleep, and suppression of hostile visitors under silver-tier strength. He confirmed it was more than a home. It was a powerful magic tool. Then he announced it was time to build chicken coops and walls for defense, promising the guards a stay in the castle with good food. The guards, excited by bread and meat, followed him to work. Over the next week, teams of guards and merchants hauled rocks 3 times a day. When nearby hills were depleted, they visited farms and sometimes paid copper coins for extra stones. Rumors spread among locals about Watson's construction. Some came to see it for themselves. Under the moonlight, a tall man and short woman arrived on a hill near Watson's land. The man, dressed in green with a winged helmet, spoke of snowstorms, poor harvests, and beast attacks. He mentioned the Empire's soldiers growing restless and praised the Count for holding the border. The woman reminded him they were messengers sent to alert the border Count and gather intel. She asked if he had found anything. He first told her about the death of the Miles Manor owner and how no one reported it because everyone thought he deserved it. She asked if he held any noble title. When the answer was no, she dismissed it. He then mentioned a second matter: a baron named Edward who had suddenly become rich and built a castle grander than any nobles. He described how the castle resembled a black crescent moon and was called Black Moon Castle. She scoffed at the rumor and began to walk away, but stopped mid-step. She pointed ahead, shaking. He followed her gaze and saw a towering structure stretching far and wide with black walls, spear-tipped barriers, and moonlight glinting off its surface. Beastly roars echoed in the air. He reminded her that she had just called him a country bumpkin. She said nothing. A banquet was held in Black Moon Castle with over 30 people gathered, including Edward, Catherine, Watson, 2 merchants, their siblings, caravan guards, and farmers. Carter toasted Watson and spoke of his reluctance to leave. Then Reynolds expressed how much he enjoyed staying in the castle. guards had settled in happily and didn't want to return home, and Reynolds remarked again about the comfort. Watson, using fruit juice, toasted the merchants and assured them they were welcome anytime. The merchants thanked him. Then Zeke and Zenoa asked to go to Monty Town with the merchants. They had sold eggs and trained briefly in combat aura with Vincent before quitting, as they preferred business. They decided to join the merchants to learn more trade skills. Reynolds quickly agreed first, then Carter objected and tried to win them over. Zeke chose Lucky Business Group, and Zenoa chose Traveling Wind Business Group. Watson watched and saw their decision as smart. Reynolds and Carter recognized the intention and accepted it. Carter bragged about his assets, then Reynolds challenged him back. They stared each other down and nearly fought. Watson stood and left, saying he needed the toilet after drinking too much fruit juice. Outside the hall, Watson looked at the dark castle and smiled, thinking about expanding it again using his earnings. He planned to absorb surrounding lands, Miles Manor, the Boundary Stones, and Misty Forest, into a large town. He didn't tell his family, thinking Edward might be overwhelmed if he knew. Near the chicken farm fence, 2 messengers from Imperial City spied through the barrier. The female saw 5 Pendicolor fragrant chickens and many colorful eggs. She noted the wall was made of black jade, a bronze tier ore, and questioned how a poor border noble could afford it. The male suggested it might be a baron who got rich. She dismissed the idea and felt her calf being tugged. Turning around, she saw the male messenger trembling and pointing. Below them, a small golden lion walked slowly, baring its teeth and radiating a powerful gold tier aura. Golden Flash strutted across the farm and wiped its mouth, then remembered the 2 sneaky figures it had scared off after sensing their presence. It decided to inform its master, hoping for Pendicolor fragrant chicken eggs as a reward. It approached its black jade palace and noticed 2 chickens respectfully offering colored eggs, a gesture that followed its recent defense of their nest from a human thief. The chickens had since accepted it, except for Emperor Cluck, who still looked down on it. Golden Flash entered the palace, lay on a feather bed, and pulled the chickens close with a look of bliss. It thought about how much better life was now. Soft beds, hot meals, and companionship. It no longer liked raw meat and had no desire to eat humans unless they came seasoned and roasted. Footsteps interrupted its rest. Watson appeared, prompting Golden Flash to leap onto his shoulder. Watson, recognizing the earlier warning cry, asked what happened. The beast drew on his shoulder with its claw, and Watson correctly guessed 2 strangers had been scared away. Watson praised it and promised extra roasted meat. He considered the possibility of thieves, but trusted Golden Flash's presence was deterrent enough. As the castle continued growing, Watson thought about expanding the guard force, realizing Golden Flash alone couldn't protect such a large area. The next morning, Zeke and Zenoa left with 2 caravans carrying Arcana Mithril to trade for gold and materials. Watson and his parents waved them off. With over 20 people gone, the manor became unusually quiet, and Watson felt a sense of emptiness. He walked to the farmland, used his light-type combat aura to boost photosynthesis, and cast a rainstorm spell to water the land. He then checked on the magical beasts at the breeding area. As evening came, Watson trained with Vincent, who now followed him to learn light-type aura techniques. Watson's system provided automatic knowledge, but Vincent's ability to use it would depend on his own skill. A month passed, and news spread rapidly that Black Moon Castle was recruiting. A guard told a friend that recruits would get meat daily, a gold coin monthly, and a chance to earn chicken eggs. His companion added that some might even receive combat aura lessons from Watson, a young silver-tier warrior, though only bronze-tier fighters were eligible. Their bald captain overheard, scolded them for chatting during work, and then demanded more details about the recruitment. The guards, though annoyed, shared what they knew. Similar discussions happened at other farms. People debated the offer: meals, gold, eggs, and training. Bronze-tier professionals were eager to join, while weaker individuals and farm owners feared losing workers. Early on recruitment day, more than 10 well-dressed guards stood outside Black Moon Castle, talking excitedly as they waited for the gates to open. Alan tidied his clothes and smiled, then stood among job applicants outside Black Moon Castle. He remembered how Watson had only taken 6 farmers from Miles Manor and regretted missing that chance. After managing the manor for a month and capturing 200 magical beast cubs, he planned to offer them to Watson. He looked at the castle with envy, wishing he could trade places with the farmers Watson had brought earlier. Watson trained alone inside the castle, slashing the ground with a wooden sword until golden light flashed from his body. After 10,000 strikes, he threw the sword away, wiped sweat, and opened his arms. 2 golden wings appeared on his back, and his shirt transformed into black armor with metal-plated wings. 2 flaming wings emerged next, covered by ancient knight armor. He had reached silver tier after a month by fusing multiple combat aura manuals his eldest brother had bought using 1,000 gold coins. Despite possessing 5 types of combat aura, earth, fire, water, wind, and light, they fused only into light. He wished for dark attribute to complete the set. Scarlet ran in carrying a silver longbow inlaid with 7 colored gems and told Watson about the crowd outside. Watson had fused that bow for her from multiple ordinary bows and the hunting moon god longbow. Since receiving it, she had hunted hens in the misty forest and increased their farm's 5-colored chickens to 6. Watson had tried to find high-grade magic too, but his brother couldn't find any beyond bronze tier, so he shifted focus to warrior training. Watson smiled and agreed to go meet the applicants with Scarlet. The castle gate opened with a rumble as Vincent walked out wearing a thorn vest and carrying a storm sword. He had trained with Watson and improved his light-type combat aura, reaching peak bronze tier. He announced that the applicants must pass a trial. Anyone who could move him without him fighting back would be accepted. Some applicants mistook him for Watson, puzzled by his strength, and debated Watson's appearance and powers. Some felt insulted by the challenge and voiced disbelief. A muscular man named William, a peak bronze tier warrior with 20 years of experience, stepped forward and volunteered to take the test. William stepped forward as the guards whispered about his ability to smash hills with a hammer. Vincent invited him to attack, and William warned that the hammer might injure him. William swung with half his strength, but when the hammer struck Vincent's chest, Vincent stood still, while William staggered back and fell. The thorny vest armor, reforged by Watson to silver tier, reflected the full force of the attack. Vincent brushed off the dust and dismissed William's attempt. The guards were shocked, and William claimed he hadn't used his full strength. Vincent allowed another try, and William charged with Earth-type combat aura. Vincent responded with Light-type combat aura, and William was knocked back again, his hammer cracking from the impact. The crowd recognized the light aura and realized Vincent was actually Watson. Vincent asked if William wanted another chance, but William declined. Vincent turned to the rest of the guards, but no one stepped forward. As Vincent was about to end the selection, Watson arrived with Scarlet and criticized the test for being too difficult, since Vincent was using silver tier armor and advanced aura. Vincent argued that weak guards couldn't protect the family or Watson. The crowd, hearing their conversation, realized that Watson was the younger brother, and that the person they just watched fight wasn't him. William shouted that Vincent had been cheating and demanded to fight Watson instead. Watson agreed and removed his gold tier armor shirt, laying it on the ground. The guards gasped at the sight. Then Watson activated his combat aura, showing 5 different types: gold, red, yellow, green, and sky blue, and chose water type specifically to give William an advantage, since it was weak against earth type. A guard nudged another and asked how many types Watson had used. The reply came 5. William looked at the aura, paused, and then admitted defeat without attacking. Watson asked if William wanted to try again, confused that he gave up despite the lowered difficulty. The surrounding guards admitted the test was too hard and began to give up. One guard, Alan, stepped forward to attempt the trial. Watson recognized him and suggested skipping the test, but Alan insisted, offering to bring 200 magic beasts after passing. Alan lightly pushed Watson, who took 2 steps back and declared him successful. The crowd recognized it as a staged success. Vincent observed silently, aware Alan had already joined Watson's side. Watson publicly welcomed Alan and promised bronze tier armor, weapons, a bronze tier beast, 10 gold coins monthly, and 3 pentacolor fragrant chicken eggs daily. To prove the rewards were real, Watson ordered Vincent to bring 100 eggs immediately. Vincent returned with the basket, and the guards grew envious. One offered a bronze tier necklace, another offered his younger sister as a maid. A third, misinterpreted by the others, clarified he meant he would use his strength, not his body. Watson asked them to offer gifts one at a time while Vincent wrote down the terms. Several guards offered valuables: jewelry, food, land, and weapons. Watson picked 10 recruits under 40 years old, rejecting the older ones despite generous offerings. He planned to use their gifts to enhance their strength through fusion. He declared the selection over and told the others to return in a month for the next round, promising a chicken egg for any successful referral. He entered the castle with the new guards. Scarlett commented on the gifts, calling Watson cunning. He corrected her, calling it wisdom. The gate of Black Moon Castle closed with a loud bang. 3 days later, Watson called a break at the training field and handed out Pentacolor fragrant chicken eggs to the 10 guards. The guards had trained under him since entering Black Moon Castle but failed to form light-type combat aura. Despite this, they were content, enjoying private rooms, full meals, and clean baths, luxuries far beyond their old farms. Watson reminded them of their promises to bring offerings and warned them not to return empty-handed. They agreed, unwilling to give up their new lives. The next day, at Miles Manor, Alan drank tea as former colleagues surrounded him, asking about the castle. He told them he was no longer their captain, described the wealth he'd gained, especially the 100 Pentacolor fragrant chicken eggs, and claimed he'd soon reach Silver Tier. When asked to help them join, he explained only Bronze Tier professionals were accepted. He sent them off to feed 200 magical beast cubs, which he planned to deliver to Watson. At List's home, his young sister Wendy resisted going to the castle to serve as a maid, afraid of noble cruelty. Their parents voiced concern, but List reassured them, promising good food, new clothes, and a better life. Hearing this, Wendy agreed, and their parents asked to come too. List said he'd need to ask Watson. On another farm, the owner tried to stop William from leaving and offered a raise to 10 gold coins a month. William refused, mocked the offer, and walked away carrying a hammer and a bundle of weapons and armor. He tossed his advance salary, 10 gold coins, on the ground and left, eager to trade his items for bronze tier gear. Similar scenes unfolded at other farms. A day later, all 10 guards returned to Black Moon Castle. One brought over 200 magical beasts, another held polished jewelry, and another brought a young girl. The courtyard filled with beast roars and loud conversations as everyone waited to present their offerings to Watson. Alan gave Watson 240 magical beasts. Half were lions, half were rock-armored demon tigers. William gave 15 black iron armor sets and 10 swords. List gave a handmaiden. The rest contributed 100 armor sets, over 20 pieces of jewelry, and 600 pounds of food in total. Watson stood at Black Moon Castle's entrance, counted the items, and rubbed his hands. Alan asked about their promised reward. Watson told him to wait, then sorted the items by category: beasts, weapons, armor, jewelry, and food. A guard questioned whether Watson would use these as raw materials, since forging bronze gear from black iron normally took more effort and rare ores. The crowd remained confused because Black Moon Castle had no forge. Wendy, holding List's hand, watched Watson and thought he looked decent. Watson smiled and initiated a fusion spell. Lions and tigers nearest to him turned into light and merged. The fusion created 120 bronze-grade liger beasts. The massive dual-headed beasts roared. The guards were stunned and questioned if it was a dream. Alan looked smug and thought more surprises were coming. Watson instructed everyone to collect a liger. The guards approached joyfully, hugging the beasts, which responded gently. While they admired their new mounts, Watson began fusing armor and swords. He grouped 10 sets of black iron gear and produced bronze-grade Gale Force armor and a bronze Watchman longsword. The armor boosted strength and speed, the sword could pierce bronze defense, and stored Da-Chi to form a strong protective shield. The armor was black with a white cloak marked by wind-like green designs. The fully enclosed helmet had a narrow eye slit. The longsword was thick, palm-wide, and engraved with landscapes. The guards reacted with awe. Watson distributed one armor set to each, giving the sword to Alan. Alan tossed aside his old spear and accepted the new sword. Wearing the Gale Force armor, Alan held the helmet in one hand and the sword in the other, attracting envious stares. He tested the gear, moved with phantom-like speed, and admired the comfort of the armor. Alan prepared to show off the sword but noticed everyone's attention shift back to Watson. Watson fused 100 pounds of wheat into golden wheat, jewelry that rippled with silver-grade energy, and magical beast meat into bronze-grade meat. The guards watched silently, overwhelmed. 10 Black Moon Knights in black armor and white capes rode magical beasts through Black Moon Castle and patrolled the grounds. One knight admired the armor's comfort and said it let him fight 10 bronze-rank warriors. The other hoped these would attack so he could test it. They talked about bronze-rank wheat and magical beast meat that Watson had distributed to the top 6 contributors. One regretted not giving more to earn the reward. The other encouraged him to keep trying, and they left. Watson arrived at the breeding farm with 110 liger beasts he had fused. He had used up most gifts he received except those from Alan, which were the most valuable. He gave Alan the fused silver tier necklace Silver Moon's Guardian, which created a silver crescent shield once per day, stronger at night. With Alan's strength and the necklace, he matched an ordinary silver tier warrior. Watson had equipped the knights while profiting and planned to use this reward model to motivate new guards. Watson called out Jinshan Shan, and a golden blur landed on his shoulder. He stroked Jinshan's head while it stared at the liger beast, who knelt and trembled. Jinshan appeared proud, but Watson said he would fuse the liger beast into it. Jinshan whined and pawed at him, reluctant to lose space or face a rival. Watson explained that the liger beast would become part of Jinshan, which would keep its mind. Jinshan agreed. Watson initiated the fusion. A golden light flashed, the liger beast vanished, and Jinshan grew 2 golden wings. It landed on the ground in its 10-meter-long, 5-meter-tall form with 3 heads and a python tail, flapping its new wings. Watson noticed only wings were added after fusing 2 gold-tier magical beasts and asked the system why. The system explained fusion rules. 10 ordinary beasts made a black iron beast, and 10 of those made bronze, continuing up the ranks. Elite beasts like lions and rock-armored demon tigers produced stronger results. It added that fusing similar bloodlines gave diminishing returns, and different bloodlines could cause mutations and loss of traits. Most importantly, fusion results depended heavily on luck. Watson asked how many golden flash-type beasts he needed to reach platinum level. The system answered, 100 if lucky. That meant tens of thousands of lions and tigers. Gold marked the threshold to real power, and platinum-level beings were rare and revered across the Holy Dragon Empire. Watson had aimed to reach that level but saw the distance still ahead. Watson fused the 2-winged golden chimera, then sat on its back and flew through the sky. The chimera, now able to carry people, soared above the clouds with supersonic speed, drawing sonic booms and leaving white trails behind. Farmers below noticed the streak and mistook it for a meteor, then realized it was a magical beast with a child on its back. The chimera vanished from their view in seconds. After flying, Watson returned to the farm, then patted the chimera's back, shrinking it to arm length as it ran off. Though his legs were weak, he felt thrilled from the experience. Then, he went to the chicken coop and looked at the 6 5-colored fragrant chickens. He activated the system fusion, and the chickens turned into light, merged, and formed a larger magical beast. The fusion resulted in a gold-tier magical beast named the 7-colored phoenix chicken. It had rainbow-colored feathers, was human height, and featured longer plumage and a tail. Its abilities included laying 1,000 phoenix eggs daily. The first consumption of an egg boosted strength by 5,000 Jin and added 50 years of lifespan. Overuse could lead to traces of phoenix bloodline. Watson noted that though it hadn't reached platinum tier, its value and egg quality had greatly improved. He then left the coop, passed by guards on tall beasts, and was greeted with respect. One joked about the light from the coop, and Watson replied that it was just the rainbow phoenix chicken. The guards were stunned, realizing its rarity and worth. One mentioned eating a phoenix egg and got smacked by another guard, who told him to get back to work. Watson walked to his bedroom, thinking of the unused 100 longswords he had plundered. He activated system fusion, and the swords transformed into a single black and gold pattern blade with a scabbard. The weapon was gold tier, smooth as a mirror, and sharp enough to leave deep ground marks. It was called the King's Sword and could pierce gold tier defenses, raise attack power by 1,000%, boost nearby allies' damage by 500%, and summon a destructive storm. He held the sword, then began thinking about Black Moon Castle's future. They all felt Watson was magical because he explained things like photosynthesis and aerobic respiration. The farmers, once from Miles Manor, now proudly identified with Black Moon Castle and felt lucky to belong. Watson asked about the farmland, and a farmer explained that the bronze-grade wheat, enhanced daily by Watson's light attribute Battle Spirit, was growing well. The wheat shimmered like jade, and Watson named it Crystal Wheat. Holding a seed, Watson saw its effects. It boosted strength by 100 pounds and relieved pain. He promised the farmers 10 pounds each when it matured, which made them smile. Vincent ran up and told Watson that Singh and Shinhwa had returned from Monty Town with many supplies. Watson hurried home and found the two brothers, dressed in fiery red and green merchant clothes, sitting in the living room. They stood and hugged Watson, appearing taller and more mature than a month ago. Their time in Monty Town had taught them business skills and gained praise from seasoned merchants. Singh said they sold all the Arcana Mithril and used the money to buy rare ores, 1,000 armor sets, 100 pieces of jewelry, and 2 carts of herbs worth 5,000 gold coins. They asked Watson to fuse the herbs into 7 treasures glazed ginseng. Singh blinked with a secretive smile, and Xinhua licked his lips, recalling their experiences in Monty Town. Under the merchant's guidance, they had lost their virginity and now understood why their parents often locked themselves in their room. They believed that change helped them grow into real men. Watson, though unimpressed, fused the herbs into 2 ginseng roots and gave them to his brothers, who sniffed them and looked intoxicated. Xinhua laughed and promised to take Watson to Monty Town in a few years to meet girls. Then he mentioned Wendy, a 12-year-old girl sent by her brother a month ago when Watson recruited guards. Wendy, with pale skin and green hair, had become Watson's personal maid. She appeared and said the hot water was ready, asking if she could help him bathe. Wendy stood at the door in a maid outfit with open lapels and looked at Watson while holding her hands over her stomach. She had grown healthier since Liz brought her to the house, gaining weight and color in her cheeks. Scarlett stood beside her, playing with the silver-grade longbow Watson had made, then criticized Wendy for helping Watson bathe instead of going hunting. Scarlett invited Wendy to join her outside to look for wild game and magical beasts. Wendy declined politely, saying she didn't want to cause trouble. Scarlett glared at Watson again and left. Watson wondered if Scarlett was jealous of Wendy, then sighed and thought being outstanding was difficult even at age 10. Singh and Xinguang arrived, whistled at Wendy, pulled her inside and closed the door. They teased Watson about having a girl at home and surrounded Wendy with questions about how they met. Wendy blushed and nervously explained that Liz brought her to serve as Watson's maid. Watson pushed his brothers aside and shielded Wendy. Singh accused him of taking her side, while both older brothers admitted Watson was ahead of them in romance despite their recent trip. Xinhua asked who was more beautiful, Scarlett or Wendy. Watson said Wendy was more beautiful and added that Scarlett wasn't even around, so it was safe to say that. He described Wendy's delicate and soft look, then imagined Scarlett's energetic attitude and small chest. Watson claimed Scarlett had no chest and joked that hugging her from behind could confuse someone. Singh and Xinhua stared past him, causing Watson to turn around and see Scarlett's angry face. She yelled at him for insulting her and chased him as he ran away. Watson later soaked in a huge heated castle bathroom, appreciating the comfort compared to their old cramped space. He floated in the warm water and thought about building a swimming pool. He heard someone changing clothes behind him, assumed it was Scarlett again, and turned around. Wendy, wrapped in a towel and holding soap, stood there. They stared at each other. The soap fell from Wendy's hand and her towel dropped, exposing her body. Wendy rushed into her room in a bathrobe, face flushed and heart pounding. She had tried to scrub Watson's back as instructed by her brother List, but the situation became too awkward. She worried that Watson might fire her and thought having her pay docked would be better. When someone knocked, she opened the door and found List, who scolded her for being too casual. She stayed quiet, embarrassed, while he reminded her of her duties. List, a peak bronze tier warrior and vice captain due to his daily intake of Pentacolor fragrant chicken eggs, told her to be diligent. Clean the floors, maintain the room, trim trees. He noted that other guards were bringing their female relatives to the castle, envying his chance to elevate Wendy's position. Before heading out for patrol, he gave her serious advice to stay responsible. Wendy agreed silently, sat down, looked at the fire, and decided to work harder to earn her 50 gold coins per month. She promised herself she wouldn't run if she saw Watson bathing again. 3 days passed. Zeke and Zenoa brought back 100 sets of weapons and armor, which Watson fused into bronze-tier equipment. He also fused herbs into high-quality medicine. The fused equipment, jewelry, and herbs totaled a value of over 100,000 gold coins. Then the two brothers left for Monty Town, saying they planned to find girlfriends so Watson wouldn't beat them to it. Watson smiled. While Wendy trimmed a crooked tree in the yard, she greeted Watson. He waved back, still embarrassed from their bath encounter. Wendy had become more attentive, serving tea, wiping his mouth, chatting until he slept, while Scarlett grew jealous and glared at him during meals. Wendy offered to prepare a bath after Watson's morning exercise. He quickly declined, saying he had something more important to do. The second round of recruitment at Black Moon Castle was starting, and he believed many new guards were waiting outside. More than 20 bronze-tier warriors stood outside Black Moon Castle in small groups, nervously chatting and holding gifts like magical beasts, weapons, meat, wheat, and even dismantled furniture. 3 3 old men among them compared how many people they had brought and what rewards they expected. Wendy stood behind Watson, who instructed her to skip preparing his bath and instead learn the recruitment process, since she would be handling it going forward. Watson addressed the gathered crowd and announced that those who passed the assessment would receive 3 Rainbow Phoenix chicken eggs daily, and the person who brought them would get one as well. The crowd, initially expecting Pentacolor fragrant chicken eggs, reacted with surprise and suspicion, wondering if the Rainbow Phoenix chicken actually existed. Watson instructed Wendy to fetch Alan in a basket of eggs to prove it. Wendy walked into the castle and returned shortly with Alan, who rode a liger and wore grand bronze tier armor. He carried a basket of 7 colored eggs that gave off a fragrant aura, making everyone's blood rush and strengthening their combat aura just from the scent. Alan dismounted and knelt before Watson, who told him he would be the examiner. Candidates only needed to force him a single step backward to pass. Watson assured Alan that it didn't matter if no one succeeded. Alan agreed and challenged the group. Multiple warriors volunteered at once, thinking the rule was too simple. They attacked with full strength, but Alan didn't move, and their blows hurt them instead. After 10 minutes, everyone had failed. Watson declared that none had passed and that they should all leave. Panic spread. Many had brought all their belongings, and now faced returning with nothing. Some old men realized their referrals would think they had tricked them. Watson added that although everyone had technically failed, anyone under 50 years old could still stay, because it's hard to say no to someone who might start crying like they just dropped their ice cream. Really? The candidates widened their eyes after Watson said they passed the test. They had arrived anxious, felt hopeful at the rules, then were crushed, and now stood confused. Watson pointed at Alan and explained that he had once been just like them, bronze tier and weak, but grew stronger in a month at Black Moon Castle. Alan confirmed it, saying he had been the weakest and now could overpower them thanks to Watson and the Pentacolor fragrant chicken eggs. Watson offered Rainbow Phoenix chicken eggs to those willing to join. 16 rushed forward, 4 elderly men stood aside, excluded due to their age. The excited recruits clutched the eggs, admired their fragrance, and imagined how they'd eat them. Alan, watching silently, remembered his own recruitment and envied the newer, better reward. Watson instructed those with eggs to follow Alan. He announced that each month a new recruit would act as examiner, and if they failed to eliminate all others like Alan did, they'd be dismissed. He added that a monthly competition would determine bonuses or salary cuts, and anyone ranking last twice in a row would be removed. Of 27 applicants, 7 were disqualified due to age. 20 were accepted, bringing the total number of guards to 30 with existing members. Watson aimed to forge the Black Moon Knights, focusing on quality, not numbers. The momentary joy turned to seriousness as recruits heard they could be eliminated if they slacked. They realized that only Black Moon Castle offered such rewards, and there were many others ready to replace them. Watson addressed the older men next. Though they couldn't join due to age, he encouraged them to refer others. If their referrals passed, they'd earn powerful gear and mounts. If those friends failed, they could still refer more. The crowd, once disappointed, now laughed lightly at Watson's serious expression as he promoted the castle. He shouted the next recruitment date, said they'd also recruit farmers, and promised rewards for referrals. Then he left with Alan, Wendy, and the successful candidates. The castle gates slammed shut, and the 7 old bronze tier men remained. They quickly decided to bring as many people as possible before others did, looked at each other, then scattered to recruit. Back inside, Watson began fusing leftover ores to expand the castle's walls. With many nearby farms weakened by the loss of their guards, he planned to buy them out and unite the area. He believed that with new farmers and guards, they could take over the region. He clenched his fists and stared at the sun. The autumn wind rustled. Over 20 days had passed since Black Moon Castle's second recruitment. Knights sat on dark jade slabs, wiping sweat as one mentioned that magical beasts would invade during the 3-month winter. Another guard said he would bring his family, confident in the castle's 3-meter walls and spear defenses that Iron Tier beasts couldn't overcome. The Holy Dragon Kingdom's winter brought endless snow, rising food costs, and magical beast attacks. Farms usually closed, surviving on stored food and occasional hunts. This year, bronze tier guards and nearby farmers rushed to join Watson after his recruitment, panicking large farms. A guard guessed Watson planned the timing, but Captain Allen scolded them to train instead of chatting. Allen, troubled by training plans, accepted Watson's system. Some carried thousands of kilograms of jade slabs daily, others hunted iron tier nests or battled golden flash every few days. Odd exercises included frog jumps and marching in square formations. Bronze-tier warriors doubted the usefulness but obeyed. After 20 days, their overall strength improved. William, once slow, gained speed and stamina. Others became more balanced in skills. Alan and Liz reached silver tier 2 days earlier, silencing complaints and increasing respect for Watson. In his office, Watson sat by the fireplace and reviewed the weekly training schedule: jump exercises on Mondays, sprints on Tuesdays, carrying slabs on Wednesdays, obstacle training in the misty forest on Thursdays, formation practice on Fridays, golden flash battles on Saturdays, and Sunday for rest or training, depending on fatigue. The system, copied from a modern army in his past life, aimed to build total strength. With 1,000 eggs daily from the Rainbow Phoenix chicken, Watson could afford heavy training. Injured guards just needed eggs to recover. Guards who trained hard could surpass peers even without talent. He read several letters from major farms, all accusing him of causing unrest and stealing workers. Some praised him, others threatened a boycott. Watson burned the letters in the fireplace, then called Wendy. She entered in maid uniform, calmer than before. He told her to revise recruitment terms, not to reduce generosity, but to simplify. All guards who passed the test would get 10 Rainbow Phoenix chicken eggs daily and housing for their families. Farmers would receive 1 egg and 10 caddies of bronze-tier wheat daily. Wendy was stunned. Watson smiled and ordered the change. The warrior sensed a hostile presence, then turned his head sharply and raised his longsword. A masked assassin emerged from the shadows, then slashed at his waist with a poisoned dagger. The warrior deflected the attack, then leapt backward to evade a second strike. The assassin lunged again, then disappeared mid-charge. The warrior twisted around, then blocked a sneak attack aimed at his back. They clashed again as the assassin cloaked himself in shadow energy first, then teleported behind the warrior. The warrior blocked, then swung a powerful counterattack that disrupted the shadow cloak. The assassin released a fog spell, then concealed the area in smoke. The warrior shut his eyes first, then focused on the assassin's footsteps. The assassin crept forward, then lunged in silence. The warrior sidestepped, then seized his arm mid-strike. The warrior disarmed the assassin, then punched him backward. The assassin triggered a teleport rune, then tried to escape. The warrior hurled his sword, which pierced the rune circle first, then pinned the assassin to the wall. The fog dissipated, then guards arrived and secured the area. The warrior presented the dagger and rune as evidence, then explained the ambush. The assassin was taken away, then continued shouting in frustration. A child nearby gasped and whispered, "That was cooler than my math homework," before running off. The warrior's captain read the report later, then chuckled and said, "Next time, let the guards help." The warrior gave a quick smirk, then returned to his duties. Fairy Castle at the border stood behind the Holy Dragon Kingdom's eastern wall, lined with bronze-tier stone, marked by weapons and guarded by soldiers in golden armor, under the Dragon Monarch's emblem. In the courtyard near a fountain, Count Sylvan sat in gold-embroidered clothing, preparing tea while 2 messengers bid farewell after 2 months. Sylvan questioned their early visit. The messengers claimed it was to observe his governance and denied any issues in the kingdom. Sylvan mentioned the monarch's illness. The female messenger hesitated before admitting the monarch was overworked, but not seriously unwell. Sylvan noted the contrast between human age and his unchanged elven form, and mocked his own immortality. Tension filled the exchange. The messengers knew Sylvan and the monarch had a strained relationship and suspected they were sent to evaluate him in case of the monarch's decline. Sylvan asked about Black Moon Castle. The male messenger said it appeared recently, guarded by magical beasts and too secure to enter. The female messenger asked if Sylvan had built it. Sylvan denied any involvement and ended the conversation. After they left, Sylvan cracked his teacup with a squeeze and froze the contents. He summoned Nightingale, leader of the Shadow Guards, from his shadow. She knelt before him. He asked her opinion on Black Moon Castle. She suggested it might have been planted by the monarch to monitor Sylvan, and explained that no known farm at the border could have built it so fast. She added that the monarch, old and weak, might be preparing to name a successor and feared the border slipping from royal control. Sylvan praised Nightingale's analysis and ordered her to travel to Black Moon Castle and align with its forces, regardless of their origin. He said if the monarch intended to attack the border, he would retaliate. Sylvan called the monarch a wolf who wore human clothes when in need, then bit the very hands that helped once crowned. He ended by stating the monarch should die. The female messenger yanked her male companion through a quiet forest west of Fairy Castle, then told him to be quiet. She noticed the temperature had dropped and warned that Count Sylvan, a fire element platinum tier mage, was releasing a murderous aura. She explained that fire magic included temperature manipulation, so even ice magic fell under it. He said he felt nothing, so she flicked his forehead and blamed his poor cultivation. When he asked why Sylvan would attack, she reminded him of the Count's falling out with the monarch after his half-elf sister, Queen Avril, died childless. The monarch didn't hold a funeral, and afterwards sent Sylvan to the border. He recalled that the Count had rarely visited the royal city since, and only during important meetings or winter. She explained that Black Moon Castle, newly built on the border, challenged Sylvan's authority and suspected its owner, Baron Edward, was backed by the monarch. He denied the connection and said Edward had no means to build a castle alone. They argued, then bet a gold coin over whether Edward was connected to the monarch and headed for Black Moon Castle. Carriages stopped at the castle gates. Wesley told Monica they had arrived. Monica opened the curtain, stepped out in a boat-shaped hat and stared heavily at the castle. She recognized the walls were made of costly dark jade stones and calculated their value, knowing such materials from her family's trade in ores and magical beasts. She smiled, imagining her future there. 4 guards followed and admired the castle's scale, comparing it to their master's manor. One mentioned rumors of a rare rainbow phoenix chicken. Another imagined boasting about living there. Wesley, remembering the area's past as a chicken farm with a wooden house, doubted what he saw. He ordered the unloading of Monica's furniture while hiding his disbelief. The guards pulled out a bronze mirror dressing table, a cabinet of clothes, a velvet-covered bed, and 2 pillows. Monica directed them carefully, warning about the lipstick's cost and the velvet's fragility. Wesley, sweating as he carried the bed, grumbled about her demands and wondered aloud why no one from the castle had come to greet them. The gate suddenly burst open. Armored knights on ligers galloped out and surrounded the group. Liz with long sky-blue hair led them and asked who they were. Wesley hesitated under their bronze-tier aura, but stood tall and declared Monica's identity as the young master's fiancée, requesting someone be sent to welcome her. List informed Watson that a woman named Monica was outside claiming to be his fiancée. Watson, confused, asked for clarification since he didn't know her. List explained she referred to the young master of Black Moon Castle, and since Watson held that title, she must mean him. He added that Monica seemed about 10 years older, and suspected the group might be scammers. Watson decided to meet them. Outside, the castle guards remained on their ligers and discussed recognizing Monica from Wilbur List Manor, a wealthy estate nearby. They noted how unusual it was that someone from such a manor would need to form a marriage alliance. Wesley, standing beside Monica, mentioned Vincent might be avoiding her. Monica dismissed his comment and knocked him on the head, threatening to report him to her father. Watson appeared at the gate, greeted by kneeling guards. He asked Monica if she claimed to be his fiancée, then recognized Wesley from a past conflict. Wesley tried to clarify that Watson was Vincent's younger brother. Monica, unimpressed, demanded that Watson fetch Vincent immediately. Watson told her to leave and explained that Vincent didn't want to see her. Monica, angry, stepped forward and raised her hand to slap Watson. Liz blocked her strike and warned her not to hit people without cause. She yelled at him and ordered Wesley to kill him. Liz released her, causing her to fall into the dirt and stain her dress. He calmly stated that she was not the master of Black Moon Castle and never would be. Wesley, furious, led 4 aides in an attack. Before they could draw weapons, 9 of Watson's guards stood up and knocked them down with single punches. Wesley's wind element battle spirit appeared but shattered on contact. His iron tier power was no match for the bronze tier strength of the trained guards. Watson looked down at Wesley and told him to inform his master that Monica should stop calling herself Vincent's fiancée, as she was unworthy. Then he turned and walked back into the castle. The guards released Wesley's group, spat in disgust, and followed Watson and List inside without saying another word. "Did Black Moon Castle's 8th child really say that?" Wilbur shouted as he threw objects across the manor. Guards knelt silently while blood dripped from their injured heads. Monica stood crying with smeared makeup, demanding revenge for being rejected and insulted at Black Moon Castle earlier that day. Wilbur grew angrier as he saw Monica's state and questioned Wesley about Black Moon Castle's strength. Wesley explained that the castle had recruited about 30 guards, now called the Black Moon Knights, all formerly bronze tier and now fully armed and mounted. He admitted they could not match that force without a gold-tier warrior and suggested asking the border count for help. Wilbur doubted the count would support a maid's family but changed his focus to profit after mentioning the rumored rainbow phoenix chicken at Black Moon Castle. He suspected they had discovered a way to upgrade the Pentacolor fragrant chicken and fantasized about mass-producing them to rival the castle's success. He ordered Wesley to gather local farmers unhappy with Black Moon Castle and to send 1,000 gold coins to the border count in exchange for a gold-tier warrior. At Black Moon Castle during dinner, Vincent warned Watson that their actions would provoke List's manor. Watson replied confidently that they could resist even thousands of Iron-tier enemies. Alan praised Watson's strength and intelligence until Watson interrupted. Watson assured Vincent that if List attacked, he would not return. Watson described how the Black Moon Knights had captured over 200 magical beasts in the Misty Forest, infused them with golden flash, creating a 6-winged golden chimera with strength beyond ordinary gold-tier beasts. Scarlet held up her silver-tier longbow and said she would use it to educate bad guys, adding she preferred shooting people over animals because small animals don't scream in surprise. After dinner, Watson returned to his bedroom with Wendy, who helped remove his clothes and offered to prepare a bath. As Watson agreed, he smelled a strange fragrance he didn't recognize. Realizing that only he and Wendy had access to the room, he concluded that an intruder, likely a gold-tier expert, had entered unnoticed, and his expression turned serious. Watson shielded Wendy and shouted at the bed, prompting a black shadow to shift and reveal a veiled woman with short black hair and dark blue eyes. The woman complimented Watson's quick discovery. Watson, suspecting danger, asked Wendy to leave the room. She hesitated but obeyed after seeing his urgency. After Wendy exited, Watson questioned the intruder, who introduced herself as Nightingale from Fairy Castle and declared she was sent to kill him. She vanished into the shadows and reappeared behind him, placing her hand on his neck. Watson realized she used short-range teleportation, confirming she was a gold-tier warrior. He stayed calm and denied having ties to the monarch, explaining he built Black Moon Castle himself using fusion magic. Nightingale interrogated him, citing the castle's resources and magical creatures as suspicious. He repeated his claim, stating fusion magic created them. Nightingale used her interrogation skill, judging truth by monitoring heartbeat and skin temperature to assess his answers. She confirmed most were truthful, except for the story of an old man teaching him fusion magic, which triggered a change in his vitals. Despite the lie, she accepted the overall explanation. She noted that fusion magic might be lost magic, and considered that Watson, if not allied with the monarch, could be a valuable asset. She lowered her hand and offered him the chance to serve the border count, Lord Sylvan. Wendy said someone tried to harm young Master Watson, then ran to find her brother List. List told her to stay put, then knocked on guards' doors one by one. 30 bronze-tier guards gathered in the corridor and were shocked someone had sneaked into Black Moon Castle. They decided to act quickly because Watson had helped them grow stronger. List warned that the intruder must be powerful and ordered the team forward. He told Captain Allen to bring the gold-tier beast from the farm and the rainbow phoenix chicken as a potential bargaining chip. Allen suggested not informing Watson's family to avoid putting them in danger. List led the guards toward Watson's room while Wendy followed behind, hoping the young master was safe. Watson sat on his bed, offered Nightingale a rainbow phoenix chicken egg, and asked why the Count wanted him. Nightingale told him about the Count's past with the monarch, how the Count helped him gain the throne, gave his sister in marriage, and was later exiled when she died. Watson realized the Count suspected he was a spy because of how quickly the castle was built. Nightingale accepted the egg and said she knew of the family's resources, having researched them. She revealed she was a gold-tier warrior with teleportation ability, which explained how she entered. Watson said he ate the eggs regularly and offered more. Nightingale repeated her question about joining the Count. Watson asked if he had a choice. Nightingale said he didn't, but assured him the Count valued talent and could help him pass the nobility exam. She said he could become a baron, protecting his family's title. She enjoyed the eggs and asked for more, finishing the 5 in the basket. Before Watson could respond, List burst into the room with 20 guards. Seeing Nightingale reaching toward Watson, they assumed she was attacking and shouted to stop her. List opened his green wings, and the feathers turned into vines that shot toward her from 3 directions. List shouted his fighting technique, and emerald vines of combat aura twisted toward Nightingale. She raised her hand, flicked her palm, shattered the vines midair, and made List stagger backward while his combat aura wings vanished. The guards, realizing her overwhelming power, drew their weapons and moved to attack. Watson raised his hand and stopped them, saying she wasn't an enemy. List, confused, rubbed his shoulders while the guards froze in place, unsure of the situation. A roar came from outside as Alan rushed in with two magical beasts, one with 6 golden wings and one resembling a multicolored chicken with a crown-shaped crest. He shouted, offered both beasts and even his own armor and sword in exchange for Watson's safety, and tried to justify his actions as a distraction. The tense mood shifted as everyone stared at him, puzzled. The guards looked embarrassed, and Watson shook his head, explaining that Nightingale came as an envoy from the border count, with peaceful intentions. Watson recounted their conversation and announced his decision to ally with the Count. The guards relaxed and admired his composure under pressure. Nightingale, meanwhile, repeatedly asked Watson for Rainbow Phoenix chicken eggs, and Watson grew annoyed. List apologized to Nightingale for attacking her. She observed the guards' high-quality bronze-tier armor and weapons, noted their elite presence, and looked at Watson with curiosity. Watson introduced Nightingale to his family at dinner. Edward and Catherine welcomed her enthusiastically and asked Wendy to prepare more Rainbow Phoenix chicken eggs. Vincent stared at Nightingale with a stern look, remembered her earlier conflict with the guards, and confronted Watson about not informing him.